The locked prison in the alien city of Zarion. The towers rose high into the pale green sky, shining like silver under the twin suns. The streets were lined with glowing stones, and alien creatures moved quickly from one place to another. All seemed perfect to an outsider. But deep inside the tallest tower, a young princess named Lyra lived as a prisoner. Lyra was not trapped behind walls or chains. Her prison was stranger. Around her lower body was a heavy, dark metal shell. The people called it the Iron Pants. It was not like normal armor. It could not be removed, not even by the strongest warriors. The lock was smooth and had no visible opening, as if it had grown from the metal itself. For 18 years, Lyra had worn this prison. Her father, Warlord Krager, told her it was for her own safety. He said enemies wanted to harm her, and this was the only way to protect her. But in her heart, Lyra never believed this. She thought there was another reason, a reason her father would never tell. She had asked many times, "Father, why can't I be free of this?" Krager always answered with the same cold voice, "The galaxy is full of danger, child. Trust me, this is the only way to keep you safe." His eyes never softened, and his voice never broke. It was like talking to a wall. Lyra's room was filled with treasures from across the galaxy, glowing gems from the Mora moons, crystal flowers from Vera, and gold statues from conquered worlds. But none of them mattered to her. All she wanted was freedom. She dreamed of walking without the heavy weight, of feeling the wind on her legs, of running into the forest beyond the city. There were whispers among the palace servants. Old stories passed from one generation to the next. They said the Iron Pants were not armor, but a seal, they said. It could only be opened by a being not of this world, a creature who came from beyond their stars. Some laughed at the idea, but others believed. One night, as Lyra stood by her window, looking at the glowing city below, a flash of light streaked across the sky. It was not a star or comet. It moved fast and then slowed, smoke trailing behind it. It was a small ship, burning as it fell. Lyra's heart raced. The ship crashed beyond the city wall, near the edge of the crystal forest. She knew her father's guards would be there soon, but something inside her told her she had to go first. She slipped through the silent halls, avoiding the guards. Her movements were slowed by the weight of the metal. But she pushed herself forward. Her breath came fast, and the cold night air filled her lungs. When she reached the crash site, the air was hot and filled with smoke. The ship was broken, its metal frame twisted. Sparks danced in the dark. Lyra coughed and waved away the smoke. Inside the wreck, she saw a figure. It was unlike anything she had seen before. The creature's skin was light, its hair short and brown. Its clothes were torn and burned. It was bleeding from a cut on its forehead, but its chest rose and fell. It was alive. Lyra climbed inside, ignoring the sharp edges of broken metal. She pulled the figure out with effort. The weight of the Iron Pants made her slow, but she did not stop. She laid the figure on the soft grass. The creature's eyes opened, bright and alert despite its pain. It spoke in a strange voice, the words unknown to her. Yet she could feel something, a connection. The way it looked at her was not with fear, but with curiosity. This was no alien from her world. This was something else. She remembered the old whispers. Not of this world. Could it be that this strange being was the one who could unlock her prison? In the distance she heard shouts. The guards were coming. Lyra's heart pounded. If they found the creature, they would take it away, maybe kill it. She made a choice. She would hide it, no matter the risk. She pulled him to his feet. His arm went over her shoulder, and together they moved into the shadows of the forest. Every step was heavy, every breath fast, but she did not stop. She didn't know why she was doing this, only that something told her this was the beginning of her freedom, and somewhere, deep inside, she hoped that fate had finally brought her the key. The human guest Daniel woke to the sound of soft humming. The air was warm and smelled faintly of sweet flowers. For a moment, he thought he was still dreaming. But when his eyes opened fully, He saw an alien ceiling made of crystal. Glowing gently in the dark, he sat up quickly, but a sharp pain in his side made him wince. His memories returned. The storm in space, the ship's alarms, the crash, and then the girl, the strange yet beautiful alien girl who had pulled him from the wreck. She was sitting nearby, watching him with careful eyes. "You are awake," she said slowly. Her voice was soft, but there was a weight to it. She spoke in her own language, but somehow he understood the meaning. It was as if her words touched his mind directly. Daniel looked around. The place was small, like a hidden room carved into stone. Light spilled in through cracks above. The bed he lay on was made of woven silver threads. He saw his jacket folded neatly on a chair. Though his boots were still wet from the crash, Lyra moved closer. "I am Lyra," she said. Her eyes flicked to the heavy metal shell around her lower body. She could see him looking at it. "You wonder about this," she said, touching the cold surface. Daniel hesitated, then reached out. His fingers brushed the lock, and something happened. The metal gave off a faint blue glow, a light so soft it almost seemed shy, Lyra's. Breath caught. She stared at him as if she had seen a ghost. "That has never happened before," she whispered. Her heart raced. Was the prophecy true? The one about a being not of this world who could set her free. She didn't know if she dared to hope. Before Daniel could ask questions, a deep voice boomed. From outside the room, Lyra froze. "My father," she said quickly. Her eyes filled with urgency. She leaned closer. "Say nothing of what just happened." The door slid open, and the air seemed to grow heavier. Krager entered, towering, with armor black as night and eyes like burning coals. He looked at Daniel as if studying a dangerous animal. "So this is the creature that fell from the sky," Krager said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. He walked slowly around Daniel. "You will stay here until we decide what to do with you." Daniel met his gaze without flinching. He had been a soldier before his crash, and he knew how to face men or aliens like this. But Krager's presence still pressed down on him like a weight. When Krager left, Lyra exhaled slowly. "He will not trust you," she said. "If he learns you can touch the lock, you will be in danger." Daniel nodded, but his mind was already racing. He had seen the lock up close now. The design was strange, but familiar. It reminded him of old Earth tech, something from before the Great Space Era, something built with both mechanical and organic systems. If that was true, then maybe, just maybe, he could open it. But he also knew one thing. Whatever secrets this alien city held, they were not going to let him go easily. And Lyra, she was trapped in the middle of it, both prisoner and princess. As the twin suns rose outside, Daniel decided he would find out the truth, even if it meant defying the most dangerous warlord in the galaxy. Whispers of the past. The palace was quiet in the early hours. The glowing streets outside were still empty, and the crystal walls of Lyra's chamber caught the first light of the twin suns. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, looking at the lock. On Lyra's armor and thought. Last night's blue glow kept replaying in his mind. He had seen technology like that only in ancient archives back on Earth. Systems made to respond to living touch. But those were myths now, technology lost for centuries. While Lyra left to speak with her attendants, Daniel wandered through the palace halls. The air was cool, and faint music floated from somewhere deep inside the structure. The walls themselves seemed alive, humming softly under his hand. He turned a corner and almost walked into an old alien. His skin was pale gold, his back bent, but his eyes were sharp and clear. The old one looked Daniel up and down, then gave a small smile. "You are the human," he said in a voice like dry leaves. Daniel hesitated. "And you are keeper of stories," the old alien replied. "I know many things your presence here will awaken." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "That girl, the princess, she carries a prison made by her own bloodline, not her enemies." Daniel frowned. Her father told her it was for protection. The old alien's eyes glimmered. Protection for him, not for her, he said. The armor is a seal to keep her power locked away. There's an old prophecy. One day, someone not of this world will come. And if she trusts him, the seal will break and the galaxy will change. Before Daniel could ask more, Lyra's voice called from down the hall. The old alien stepped back, his face now blank. We never spoke, he said quickly, and disappeared. Into the shadows, Lyra approached, curious. What were you doing here? She asked. Daniel shook his head. Just exploring. But his mind was spinning. The prophecy, the seal, the mention of her power. If all this was true, then Krager wasn't protecting his daughter at all. He was protecting his rule. As they walked together, Daniel noticed guards watching them closely. He could feel the tension in the air. This was no normal royal palace. It was a cage dressed in jewels. Lyra glanced at him, her voice low. There is something about you, human. I feel it. Her hand brushed against his for a moment. Almost by accident, the lock on her armor gave a faint pulse of light again. Hidden under her clothing. She noticed it too, and her eyes widened. Neither of them spoke, but in that silent moment, both knew the old whispers might not be just stories. Far above the city, in the shadow of the warlord's tower, Krager stood at a window, watching them. His jaw was tight. His spies had already told him about the human's strange effect on the armor. And Krager knew one thing for certain. If the seal broke, his power would end. The Forbidden's plan that night. The palace was wrapped in silence. Outside, the twin moons cast a silver glow across the alien city. Inside her chamber, Lyra paced back and forth, the weight of the iron pants dragging at her every step. Daniel sat near the window, his eyes scanning the distant crystal forest. If what the old man said is true, he began, there must be a place. Something hidden, where we can find the truth. Lyra stopped pacing. There is a place, she whispered. But it is forbidden's, the temple of the first queen. No one is allowed to enter, not even me. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Why? Because, she said, lowering her voice, the first queen was like me. And my father fears her legacy. A faint tremor passed through the floor, followed by the muffled sound of marching. Lyra moved to the door and peeked out. The corridor was lined with guards, all moving toward the war hall. Her father must have called a late council. It was the only chance they would get. She closed the door and faced Daniel. If we are caught, he will kill you, Daniel shrugged. Then let's make sure we're not caught. They slipped into the hidden servant tunnels behind the chamber. Walls, the air inside was damp and cold, lit only by faint strips of glowing fungus. Lyra's armor scraped against the narrow walls, sending soft echoes ahead of them. Every sound felt too loud, every shadow too deep. They moved quickly, turning left, then right, following paths Lyra had learned as a child. She had played in these tunnels before she understood they were meant for spies and assassins. Now they were her lifeline. Halfway through, they heard voices. 2 guards were coming from the opposite end. Daniel grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her into a side passage, pressing them both against the wall. The footsteps grew louder. Lyra held her breath. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. The guards passed without noticing, and they moved again. This time faster. Finally, they reached an ancient stone door deep under the palace. The carvings on it were worn and faded, but Daniel could see the image of a woman without armor, standing with a human-like figure at her side. This is it, Lyra said, placing her hand on the door. Beyond here is the truth. Daniel stepped forward, running his fingers along the carvings. The symbols seemed to hum at his touch. Then, without warning, the lock on Lyra's armor gave a brighter pulse of blue light. The stone door shuddered, as if it felt the reaction. But before they could push it open, a shout echoed from the tunnel. Behind them, the flicker of torches appeared, growing brighter. Krager's guards were coming. Daniel looked at Lyra. We're out of time. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Then we run. They turned and fled into the darkness, the sound of the guards' armor clanging behind them, somewhere deep in the palace. A warlord's rage was already building, and the hunt had begun. The Chamber of Truth. They ran until the tunnels twisted into unfamiliar shapes. The air grew warmer, and the walls changed from smooth crystal to ancient stone. The glow of the fungus faded, replaced by the flicker of strange symbols that lit themselves as they passed. Lyra slowed, her eyes wide. These tunnels. I have never seen them, she whispered. Her voice trembled with something between fear and awe. Daniel glanced back, no sign of the guards. But he knew they wouldn't be far. We keep moving, he said. The temple must be close. Path led them to a massive round door, unlike anything Daniel had seen before. It wasn't carved, it was grown, as if the stone itself had shaped into perfect curves over centuries. In the center was a seal, the same strange design as the lock on Lyra's armor. The sight made his chest tighten. This was no coincidence. Lyra stepped forward. Placing her hand on the seal, nothing happened. She looked at Daniel, her voice low. Try. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed his palm against the cool surface. The seal flared with blinding blue light. The metal around Lyra's waist pulsed in rhythm, as if alive. The door groaned and split open, revealing darkness. Beyond, they stepped inside. The chamber was huge, its walls covered in murals. The air was heavy with the scent of old metal and dust. In the center stood a statue of a woman without armor, her eyes set with glowing crystals. Beside her was the figure of a human male. His hand resting in hers, Lyra stared, her breath catching. It's me, she whispered, then her gaze shifted to human in the carving. And you, Daniel's mind raced. This is a prophecy. They moved closer, and words etched in glowing letters began to appear across the floor. Daniel knelt to read them. The language wasn't Earth's, yet the meaning poured into his mind like water. When the blood of the stars is bound in chains, only the touch of the wanderer shall break them. Together they will rise, and the worlds will bow. Lyra's fingers brushed the lock on her armor. It's true, she said softly. You are the key. Before Daniel could answer, the sound of clanging metal echoed from the doorway. Shadows moved on the walls. The guards had found them. Krager himself stepped into the chamber, his eyes burning with fury. Step away from her, human, he growled. Daniel rose slowly, his body tense. Lyra moved between them. Father, you lied to me all my life, she said, her voice sharp and shaking at once. You are my weapon, Krager said coldly, and I will not let a stranger take you from me. The guards closed in. Their spears glowed with deadly energy. Daniel glanced at Lyra, then at the statue, and knew this moment would decide everything. The breaking of chains. The chamber seemed to shrink as Krager stepped forward. His towering frame blocked the light from the entrance, and the glowing murals flickered as if afraid. Daniel's fists clenched. He had faced danger before, but never with the weight of a prophecy pressing against his back. Lyra's breathing was sharp. Her eyes flicked from her father to the glowing lock on her armor. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, yet now that it was here, fear gnawed at her. Krager's voice echoed. Leave now, human, or you will die where you stand. Daniel didn't move. His voice was steady. You've kept her chained for 18 years. That ends tonight. Krager's hand went to the hilt of his massive blade. The guards moved in a half circle, their spears crackling with energy. Lyra stepped back toward the statue. The blue light from the lock began to pulse again, brighter and faster. She reached for Daniel's hand without looking at him. Do it, she whispered. He placed his palm on the lock. The moment his skin touched the cold metal, the entire chamber erupted in light. The walls shook, dust rained from the ceiling, and the murals glowed like fire. Krager shouted for his guards, but they stopped in their tracks, the heat from the energy forcing them back. The lock burned hot under Daniel's hand, yet he didn't pull away. The light grew so bright it was blinding. And then, with a deafening crack, the iron pants shattered into fragments that hovered in the air for a heartbeat, before dissolving into glowing dust. Lyra gasped as the wake vanished. Her legs were free, and a radiant armor of light formed around her, flowing like liquid. Metal power surged from her body, sweeping across the chamber in a wave that knocked the guards to the ground. Krager staggered but kept his grip on his blade. His eyes burned with rage. "You fool! You've doomed us all." Lyra's voice was no longer uncertain. It was clear and commanding. "No, Father. I freed us." She raised her hand, and a wall of shimmering energy formed between Daniel and the guards. Her new armor glowed brighter than the murals, and the air hummed with her power. For the first time, Krager hesitated. His weapon lowered slightly as he saw the force standing before him was no longer his daughter. It was the queen the prophecy had promised. Daniel took a step closer to her side. "What now?" he asked quietly. Her eyes stayed locked on Krager. "Now, we end his rule." A new reign. For a long moment, no one moved. The chamber glowed with the light pouring from Lyra's armor. The guards stared in silence, unsure whether to obey their warlord or bow to their new queen. Krager's grip on his blade tightened, but he could feel the power in the air. It was unlike anything he had ever faced. For the first time in years, fear touched his heart. Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing through the chamber. "The chains are gone. The lies are over. This world will no longer be ruled by fear." Daniel stood beside her, ready for whatever came next. The prophecy had brought them here, but the choice to act had been theirs. Krager raised his blade with a roar, charging toward them. Lyra lifted her hand, and a wave of light burst outward. It struck him like a storm, throwing him back against the far wall. The weapon clattered from his hand. The guards dropped to one knee, their heads bowed. They knew the warlord's reign had ended in that instant. The queen had risen. Lyra turned to Daniel, her eyes softer now. "You freed me, but you also freed them," she said. Glancing at the kneeling soldiers, Daniel smiled faintly. "Guess we make a good team." She stepped past her father, who now lay on the ground, defeated but alive. "You will live," she told him, "so you can see what real rule looks like." They left the chamber together, the light of her new power filling the halls. As they emerged into the open air, the city below stirred. People looked up, seeing their queen without chains for the first time. And a cheer began to rise, but in the far distance, beyond the silver towers and crystal forests, a shadow moved across the stars. Watching, waiting. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but the story was far from over.